Greetings! Welcome to Terra Prime Live, the 7-Form Symposium 2019. Very special show this day because we have our special guest, General Sun, Damon Honeycutt, here joining us for the discussion today. We started these back when we first started in 2012, and we did them regularly and yearly for a while, and then we went to kind of biannually. We're going to go back to yearly here. We're going to try to do it more like this, where we're going to get together. We're going to come up with stuff, which we will then be releasing after the fact. We've got lots of material that we came up with during this weekend. Donors who donated to the fundraiser, thank you all. You all got some special little feeds and stuff like that through the weekend. We had a little trouble with weather, so we are one person short. Nero Jared is not here with us. Hopefully some other people will be joining us online as we move on. So that's the beginning. Elsewise on the panel, we have our friend Daniel Maratz from, what university do you teach?
University of Ottawa.
Of Ottawa, okay, yeah. I didn't know which one. Okay. And I guess I never asked that for some reason. University, yeah. A university. And we've got Ben Judkins from Cornell, and Matthew from Terra Prime, Vorok, and me also from Terra Prime. We don't have the monikers of the day. Anyway, so here we are. What did we do this weekend? We went over Form 5 Djem. And that is going to be our major focus here at TPLA for a while. We're going to try to get more into that. Where that kind of occupies for us is more in the dueling area. So a lot of its stuff is going to be focused on dealing with one opponent in a kind of one-on-one scenario or self-defense scenario, that kind of thing. But you'll have applications elsewhere. That's kind of where it is. So I think for most people out there who are now either in France, who are doing the French sport lightsaber, or here in America who are doing something with any of the basic amateur leagues that have popped up, Lightspeed, TSL, Ludo Sport, any of these places. If you're into that kind of stuff, this material is going to be really, really well suited for you because that's where it's going to be focused. But we'll just open it. So we'll send it over to you here. How did you like the weekend?
The weekend has been really informative and gracious, and I just want to be I'm just so thankful for you guys, for us all getting together and having a really good conversation about what all of this is that we do together, and for you supporting my reemergence into this community. I think the weekend creates for me a sense of purpose, in the sense of sharing these skills with people at large all over. When I think about how we are taking Yu Chun Hoi's form and putting it into Form 5, and how he communicated to me directly in that conversation that I had at Peter Strong's house about how he wanted to create this form for world peace, I can think of no better avenue than how the lightsaber, in a sense, and all these things that people are doing with it, let the boundaries of everything that we have disappear. People just are inspired and they practice. And so I think I am very happy that we can continue his idea about this form through this mythos, if you could say.
Absolutely. And since I also worked with him, I totally agree with you. And that is one of those things. I think he would have really liked the lightsaber.
Yeah.
For that very reason.
Because he would have had a lot of fun. And I think it would have put a smile on his face. And I think he would have thought it was different and unique. And yeah, it would have been really cool.
And one thing I've always thought is if Yu Chun Hoi had ever discovered the lightsaber, would he have ever appeared in one of the Star Wars movies? And that would have been amazing.
That would have been totally.
That would have been down. Yeah, just historic. But
do you think that
people in the community know about Yu Chun-hui and who he was, and maybe you could talk a little bit about this amazing Chinese martial arts
Very good.
master and cinema actor who you both had contact with, who was a sort of source for this stuff. And you both have really good stories about him. Maybe put it a little bit in context. Who was Yu Chun-hui?
Yeah, so I've talked about him a little bit before in relation to stuff. I'll let you talk because they haven't heard your view yet.
So when I moved to the East Coast, I moved to Connecticut to study under a master named Hu Jin Chong, and I just kind of really put everything into a bag and I moved. And he started having a series of tournaments, and he invited Yu Chun-hui to come to perform and do things. And I got a lot of time with him during that visit, and I was always inspired by his sword technique, but having one-on-one time with him in the sense of a conversation and a dialogue at my friend Peter's house, I think I learned a lot about how the depth of the man, how he approached things as an artist and a creator, and as someone who was just a very, very, very good human being. And it was very inspirational for me to continue my own practice, you could say. I don't know, it was like some strange, like intergenerational kindred spirit or something.
And Yu Chun-hui made up this two-handed Djem, or Chinese straight sword form, right, based on historical sources.
Yeah, he had because the two-handed Djem, as people might be following this stuff a lot. No, I say a lot. Two-handed Djem was extinct in China by the Ming Dynasty, and the one source that we have for two-handed Djem says that in the opening paragraph. So yeah, Yu Chun-hui created this form out of the various different different traditions that he's had, drunken mantis and that kind of thing. I don't know if did Mantis have the two-handed sword in there before?
Well, I know there's people that I knew, like my friend James, who studied with Wang Rengong, who did Tai Chi Mei Wa Tang Lang Jun.
Yeah.
They have a two-handed sword form.
Yeah.
But I don't know the history behind
Yeah,
that.
I don't
It became
know.
popular during the Republic period.
Oh, did it?
Yeah,
Okay.
during the
Yeah.
1920s and 30s, you see two-handed sword and mantis and a lot of other arts. So they went through a mini revival of nationalism there.
Yeah, it's the same thing in the Ming Dynasty. The two-handed sword kind of came back with the Chang Dao. And
So it seems like there's a kind of like an ebb and flow with a relationship with this weapon that people seem to manifest in different avenues, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So now we're manifesting it in the lightsaber, where other people, like you said before, Ben, in the Republic era, it's like, that's how it. See what the next manifestation is.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, and that's the thing. It's as forms go too, as like weapons forms go. You see lots of weapons forms in Chinese martial arts, and this is, there's not any form kind of like this. It's obviously very impressive. If anybody sees Master Yu do it, it's.
Yeah, maybe we can put a link to him in there.
Yeah, we will. Yeah, we will.
People can take a look at that.
Yeah, we might even be able to bring it up on there and then turn the camera and see a little bit of it. But yeah, he was an amazing guy. We probably got him on the same tour, right? Because because when I saw him, it was because I was with the Wushu group here, Paramount Wushu, and they brought him in, and he was going around the country at that time.
No,
and so that might have been one of his stops. So it might have been the same trip.
And maybe everybody else saw him in all those Shaolin films that he appeared in.
He had
an acting career too.
That's right. Yeah, probably the place where most people have seen him, if you're into martial arts, is in Shaolin Temple. He's the evil leader guy. I don't remember the character's name.
Ling Shiming. Is anyone Ling Shiming?
I don't remember. I can't remember any character name from that movie.
I just know he fights Yu Hai with that like batleth looking crazy sword thing. Which is pretty amazing.
Yeah, batleth. Yeah, we dropped the name of the batleth there. We're gonna get into that stuff.
I was like, whoa. Anyways, it's worth watching for sure.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. So, and he was general. I'm thinking. So Yusufu was
General
in was
Right.
in all kinds of movies and stuff like that. So he was I don't know. I think he's a kindred spirit because, and we've been talking about this. Seriously, thinking he's probably, in a large sense, just between you and I, even the ipso facto patron saint of lightsaber. Without ever anybody knowing it. Because
and so significant because he was willing to be creative too. Like he made that form and he put his name to it. And he said, "These are the historical sources I use, but I'm going to do something creative now."
Yeah, that's a lot of courage, man.
Yeah,
that's a lot of
and
courage.
You don't
courage
see that
to
in
create
Chinese martial arts, where everything has a 4,000-year-old history.
Courage to create. I think that's really important. When I knew Professor Ronald Duncan, the main thing I remember talking to him, he said that he really think that martial artists should be way more creative.
Yeah.
And I think he's absolutely right with that. And not creative in the sense of diminishing the foundations of the martial training and the history that's come before, but in the sense of applying one's own perception and authentic cultivation of what's going on. Whatever medium you want to do it in, whether you're gonna paint or you're gonna work with a lightsaber or you're gonna work with very, very traditional weapons. It's like the manifestation doesn't matter, but the intention behind it I think is very important.
Yeah. That's another thing I think is important too with this material. Because now some of you may have seen some of this form, because I've used this form for the Juyo, right? This is different, right? They're totally different interpretation. They're going to be very distinct forms, and that's one of the the beauties about how Yu Ching-hui taught, was that you were free to explore those areas. In fact, he encouraged it. You would ask him, "Oh, should I do it this way or this way?" So, change it up. Do it differently. It depends on where your space is.
Not no, the general. I'm sorry, Chi Jianguo is my teacher.
We did it.
Chi Jianguo.
Who's been dead for a really long time.
Very long time. Remember he talked about all traditions are inherently incomplete?
Yeah.
And this is, I think, a perfect manifestation, because I only brought like 3 lines for us. And whether it's subconscious or it's intentional, I really encourage people to learn and manifest personally those lines that we put up, those small like linear sets, but then also, where does it take you? Share it with us. Let's have a dialogue. Yep. I think this is a really beautiful, and when Master Yu would talk about world peace is conversation. We're going to have a conversation. We're going to have a dialogue. Let's have a dialogue. Let's bring this form, do something cool with it, and make it a way to communicate the way that he wanted, where we can, without judgment, but with a sense of authentic discernment, be able to go into the art of the saber or the sword or whatever we're holding in our hand and bring people together in a sense of unity like that. I think that'd be beautiful.
Absolutely. And I mean, that's one of our 4 principles, community, competition, sport, all of that kind of thing. That's one of our things. It's always been a part of TPLA, which is building community. The community is now huge, so I don't know if, I hope we had a hand in that, but it doesn't really matter to us, because we're not in it for, for the fame or for the notoriety. We actually just want this to exist. That's it.
If we had a goal of something we want to achieve, it's to propagate this information. It's to make sure that whoever carries it forward from us, it's carried forward.
It's like open source martial arts.
Yeah, no, and that's what we are open source. We are officially open source. In fact, I think that was our first tagline, was the first fully open source lightsaber school in the galaxy.
That's cool.
Yeah, that was what we did.
Master, you came in with a book of pictures of Rodin sculptures.
That's
yes,
right. Yeah.
Yes.
So
unusual.
when he came there, my friend Peter Strong. So if you go to my website, you'll see Peter Strong and I going through the forum together, because Peter Strong has a strong memory of it, and I needed to go to him to kind of recall a lot. And so we're visiting him where he lived in North Carolina, and he gave Yu Ching-hui this book of Rodin sculpture, and Yu Chun-hui, when he started the seminar at Hujinjiang School, says like, your sword plate must look like this sculpture. And I don't know how many people grokked that.
Yeah.
I was like, dude, that is cool, you know, because it's not only is it cross-cultural, but it's also cross-medium, and it's shows the depth of how he felt about the sword, not only as something to be used, but also as something to be expressed.
Yes.
And I think that is, both are paramount, I feel, in the sense of the cultivation of someone who wants to be more than just a pit fighter.
Yeah. And that's a really good segue here. We should talk a little bit about that. Martial art, the art part of it. What does that mean there?
The self-expression part of it.
Everybody, as you know, especially nowadays with the popularity of mixed martial arts and cage fighting and all that kind of stuff, people are very, very pigeonholed into that thing. And yeah, the competition, there's a way to train for a competitive fight, right? There is a way to fight a competitive match, right? But remember, that's not the only way to fight. That is one context in which we fight, you know, with a very, very specific set of criteria, right? And it's a controlled environment. Whatever anybody says, a fight in a ring is a controlled environment, right? Because you'll have things that are illegal, there are things you cannot do. You have a ref that can step in. You have medical personnel there waiting, you know, all of that kind of thing. But I think what a lot of times gets lost in those conversations is the art part of it. You know, where's the art of it? You know, yeah, okay. For the gamblers, MMA and, you know, just putting them down, that's fine, right? For the spectator, you know, and that's why they had to put in the 30-second rule for grappling in the UFC. These people were getting bored, you know?
Oh, I didn't know about
just
that.
like boom. And then for 15 minutes, you're watching two people wrestle around on the ground. Nothing much is happening.
Interesting. Spectator implies spectacle.
Exactly. Right. And spectacle, showy, exaggerated. You know, people always down martial arts that get exaggerated. Right. Now, sure, there's a point that you pass that's, yeah, but where that line is, I don't know. You know, because if somebody can do a butterfly kick over a person, you have to then convince me that the athleticism, power, balance, and coordination that they need to do that is useless in fighting. Because, come on. Now, granted, the only way you can learn how to fight is to fight. That's fine. But we're not talking about fighting right now, right? We're talking about the art of it, right? And it's just like what Yu Chun-hui would say, refer to what people actually consider art. You know, it should be like sculpture, painting, you know, whatever.
Like that scene in Hero. Do you remember the scene in Hero? It was like martial arts and music are the same.
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember when they had that fight in their mind?
Yeah.
And the dude's playing the like zither.
Yep.
Yeah. And that's a pretty cool scene.
Oh, I love that scene. That's a great scene.
And I think it is imperative that I feel that martial artists or people that come to the lightsaber community and want to cosplay or whatever go through a gate that creates a pressure of competition.
Yeah.
And what I mean, and that can be sparring, or that can be form work, or that can be performance. All of those are pressure, because pressure is like a forge which can help remove the impurities of the blade. However, the manifestation of that pressure is, to me, not so important. Maybe you are more geared to fight. Maybe you are more geared to look at the exactness of form. Maybe you are more geared to understand how to perform. Some of the most disciplined people and the people that have the highest pain tolerance I've ever known are real professional dancers. And because show must go on,
Yeah.
I feel like that is no different than fighting someone in a ring, because either way there's pain. Either way there's suffering. You got to go through it and you have to commit. And that's what it comes down to, is the commitment to practicing something that leads you to your essential nature. And I think that's what brings me to this form over and over again. I feel that, as I said before in earlier things, like this is like the aspects of my relationship with this form and my interactions with Hu Jinchang and Yu Chung Hui, wanted to make this sword form my family sword form, and to like show my son, and like my wife and I practice it and all the rest of it. And yet we share it with everybody. And I think that's an important thing, to be open source, and at the same time understand that, like, wow, you can still have something and still share it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's like super cool, and that's very, very important.
Yeah,
especially today.
And another thing too, like, you think, like, I'm from an artistic background, like a fine art background. So I went to SAIC and stuff like that, and we have the same concerns and everything like that in art. And I was in performance, right? So performance art. And like, I remember when we would do, like in Lynn Hickson's class, we would go out, we would perform, and it would be, hour and a half or something like that. The feeling that you would have after that is the exact same feeling I get after sparring, or and anything like that. That buzz, that when I was an interpreter on the stage, same thing. You get off, it's like about to Hulk out. You know what I mean?
Can you talk about that feeling a bit more? Because that's a really interesting observation.
Well, there's an exhilaration. I don't know. It's like,
we can use metaphor.
Yeah.
Your blood is singing in your veins.
Yeah.
There's a head rush. The curtain comes down, and you go up.
Yeah. You get elated, and especially like, and another really important part about the performance aspect of this all is collaboration, right? Is that if you're performing with anybody, it's a collaboration. Movies might have a director, but a director cannot make a movie alone, right? A director directs a collaboration. Says you work with him, and you work with him, and you work with him. That's what a director does, and that is really lost in martial arts. I think probably because of the aspect of conflict that is in martial arts. On the other hand,
and the hierarchy of it.
Right.
Hierarchy of lineage in every school. Yeah.
On the other hand, when we're doing this with the lightsaber, we kind of like put all that stuff to the side, and we just play.
Play.
And that's probably, in my view, I hate using this term, but a pure way of practicing martial art, rather than trying to construct. That's the term pure.
Faster, right?
Yeah,
that's what you mean.
Yeah,
I sometimes use the phrase "I'm going to go play at swords."
Yeah,
not because it's not to diminish it,
yeah,
but because it is something that is fun, it's pleasurable, it's enjoyable, especially when you are working with other people who are having that same joy.
Well, it's also a safety thing too, right? I mean, it's like how we were sparring today. It's like, wow, I haven't sparred in a long time, man. Get knocked in the head a little bit. That's cool. But still, you got to go where kind of not where angels fear to tread, but you just got to go in there.
Yeah.
And you have having the courage to make mistakes through the commitment of things, and to feel the dialogue of it. And I think that's, sometimes I feel like there's a very perfectionist mindset around things, or a masterpiece complex.
Yeah.
Or kind of impersonal thing, like, oh, next, as opposed to,
yeah. But I
this
think
was
also
a conversation, like,
attachment, non-attachment. Yeah.
I think too, it's not necessarily that over analytical. I think it's not, or people wanting victory or something like that. But like when people come into this not having any experience in martial arts or any of this stuff before, that's what they think of, and that's all they think of. This is, I'm going to hit you, and you have to. And that's why, like, my teachers never let me spar or fight for at least 3 years of training.
Right.
I said, no, you're not ready for it. It wouldn't make any sense to you. It wouldn't be valuable for you, because you would do it, you would get beat, and you're not at the point where you can take that loss and make it work for you.
or even worse, you win and then you quit.
Yeah, that's the worst thing. If
Yeah,
you start
that's
winning,
the
if
thing.
you
Yeah,
start
right.
winning right away,
Yeah.
and I say this a lot, I have met so many fighters who are undefeated until their first loss, and then they quit.
That's
You
a
know?
surprise.
And that's the thing, man. I'm not impressed by people who win. Right? I'm impressed by people who get back up. Right? So yeah. You get knocked down and you get back up. Wow. That's good. Right? But you win. Okay, you plow through somebody. Okay, that happens. That's chance. You know. And when we're talking about lightsabers, we're talking about swords. You look in the historical record, people fought with swords. Who died and who lived didn't really matter much on skill, because a novice sinking a blade into your skull is going to kill you just as fast as if it was an expert.
There's a couple of popular quotes in like film culture, like in the 13th Warrior, like luck will often save a man if the courage holds. Courage holds, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then another one was like, well, even the Seven Samurai, like the leader of the guy who's based off Yagi Minonori, he was just like, yeah, I was in a lot of battles, all losing. And I think that's really interesting. Like that main character was based off that.
Yeah, I think that's really important. And I think that's one of the things that as an extension from Djem Hui, as we're bringing that in, this aspect of performance, this aspect of sharing, this aspect of trying to bring, world peace. Let's talk about world peace real quick, right? We are using weapons that are not real weapons. This is why this stuff is really powerful for people, because even with a sword, a fake sword, people are afraid of it, right? Because that's what it represents. It represents a killing tool. It's the first invention of man that was made specifically for the killing of other people, right? And that's always going to be with us. No matter how much honor, mystique we put onto it, that's always its legacy. That was the first thing. That only purpose was to kill a person. You don't hunt with it. You don't cook with it. You don't chop wood with it. It is a tool for killing, right? And that almost shows historically, like a turning point in human civilization.
And like this afternoon, when the children came in while we were filming General Sun here, and we offered them the lightsabers because they could see what was going on, and then we had a hard time getting the lightsabers back from the children because, of course, this was the best thing that could have happened while they were visiting their mom's boring health club or whatever reason they were sticking their head.
Yeah, that kind of sticks in my craw a little bit, because my class never gets any good promotion or anything like that, because it's very small and kind of off the beaten path. But we're probably responsible for more people joining, because their kids went, "Oh my God!"
I know, dude.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's cool.
I wanted to ask you guys about some stuff. There was
Sure.
something that you had said, and I worry that it's all of these TPLA wonderful online conversations, and we're going to repeat the same stuff. So I'm going to
That's
ask
okay.
you to tell the same stories again and again. But there were two things, and one is something that you haven't spoken about yet, and that is we're talking about being artistic, and like here the artistic thing is how do you interpret a transfer? So you've got Djem Hui's form, and you're transferring to a lightsaber, and then Damon, General Sun, has this killer background in dance and Chinese theater and various kinds of Chinese martial arts and yoga. And how are
Well,
you?
could we make it even more specific
Yeah.
in terms of the transfer? In that, Yu Cheng Hui is very, very famous as a drunken expert. That's what he did in performance wushu. He was an expert in drunken boxing.
Drunken boxing means that the style of presentation looks like you're drunk, but you're actually doing all these deft and crafty things.
Drinking a gourd of wine.
No. Whereas,
Just as long as you keep your
I
angles,
just had to do that.
you're okay.
Yes.
So,
He was an expert in monkey.
yeah,
Right.
So,
totally.
so we have an interpretation of the form kind of from a drunken master into a monkey master here. It's one of
I
the-
wouldn't say I'm a master, but I did do some drunken. So
Yeah.
as have we.
no, I mean like actual drunken.
Yeah, no, David, like
That's the
what-
only Scottish
so-
stuff.
So what's the art part? Is it you're changing the steps, you're changing how you make the curves when you go from a bladed weapon to a lightsaber? Like what are all your
God, that's
what
a
are
really
all the
good question,
factors
dude.
that are making you create this? You kept talking about like, excuse me, the straight cut, and then you're like, oh no, you could do it with an undercurve. Is it because the saber's round? Does the roundness of the saber make you think of this undercurve?
Well, if I'm cutting
What's
with
going
light,
on?
if I can actually cut stuff with light,
Yeah.
it don't matter.
No,
Right.
you
It's
can,
gonna
yeah,
cut everything.
yeah. You
So
no
I'm
edge
gonna-
alignment doesn't matter.
I'm just gonna like go,
Yeah,
and it's
right.
gonna go through the door or whatever. I think what it is for me is that when you look at forms, let's just take up to Ataru. Those are kind of like a first tier
Mhm.
understanding of certain principles.
Right.
Then once you get to the next one, you're integrating principles.
Mhm.
And so then it becomes a complexity thing.
Mhm.
So then you're doing like if you think of chaos theory, it's a strange attractor.
Mhm.
Like there's no center to it. You have to do math without numbers. You have to arrive at that. You can't have a pre-conventional idea of movement. You have to have a trans-conventional idea. If I was to pull an integral
What-
theory,
For sure. What kind of principles would you be combining?
the
Things that don't necessarily go together, obviously.
hardness and softness at a very
Uh-huh.
basic level. Also, yielding to overcome.
Mhm.
Resiliency in being pressed.
Mhm.
Like if you're defensive and you're feeling like, oh my gosh, this person's like when we sparred today, like you really great fighter. You're also taller than me, and it's just like, oh my god, here comes
It
this
comes
long ass
crashing in on you.
Chewbacca arm at me. What am I gonna do?
Yeah, yeah.
And it's just like, so I'm backing up, defending, but it's just like, am I going to feel defeated by reversing, or am I going to realize that I am the rock in the
Mhm.
river
Mhm.
that pierces? Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Totally.
And I think that's a threshold that people,
Yeah.
I think in the beginning people think, doop, doop, and then it becomes a spectrum.
Right.
And I think the spectrum of consciousness that exists in practice gets there by training in the way, whatever your way is, whether it's a personal truth, whether it's something that you follow.
Mhm.
you
So
know?
you've got this, you describe these fundamental forms as being relatively straightforward, and this one as being all these combinations. So as you start to interpret it yourself and bring it to the lightsaber community, what kind of changes or interpretations are you bringing? Be really concrete, like, I step differently, or
I do step differently. I
Yeah.
don't like to move. I think because if I think of the Taishin footwork,
Yeah.
is pretty complex
Mhm.
and also very low. I also, because of my Danzanru training
Mhm.
when I was a kid, like to be very still. I think this form brings a combination of that, where I can take that the stuff I learned from Pali and Taishin Pekwar, move with it in planar sense. Is that a weird way to talk about it?
No,
Like, can I float
planar,
like
yeah.
in a plane, but then in a sense root down in the sense that I'm going to hug somebody.
Mhm.
So when I engage the sword, it's almost like I feel like when I engage with this form with the sword, that I'm almost entering into kind of like a sword grappling.
So the sword is like a kind of grappling lever.
It's like a bridge. Yeah, it's exactly a lever. If you
Yeah.
think of a simple machine style,
Uh-huh.
totally.
Shui Jiao
Yeah.
trains the stick
Right.
because
And
the
that-
stick will allow you to.
Because
do
the last thing I
throws.
think about, like when we're starting today, remember we're saying like, oh, I just want to kick everybody.
Mhm.
And it's like the last thing I think about is the sword. I just want to kick people. It's like what?
Yeah.
It's like weird, right? But it's
Uh-huh.
like kind of funny.
Yeah.
And so it's like it creates a relationship with like, now I feel your center. Now I want to get to know you.
And is that the same kind of lever? Like, is the lightsaber a similar lever to an actual metal gem? What's the change there when you guys?
Well, I don't know. We're using
thinking of it as a
lightsabers that are made out of polycarbonate. And if I
Yeah.
made it like a plasma blade, I don't know, dude. That would be crazy.
No, for our lightsaber. For the one
For our lightsaber,
yeah.
it is. I think it is. It is totally the same. I think the difference is the feeling.
You know,
of
when we're in the
weight.
future or the deep past and we have actual plasma blades.
Yeah, right on. I think it is the same. I think it's a timing of getting a relationship with it. If I think of like the lessons from the Mahabharata, where Drona talks about even the blade of grass as a weapon. I think there's a lot of truth in that, in the sense of that, like I pick up a yardstick and it's the same. It's like I got this sword made for me from and it was Damascus. And as soon as I got the sword, I was just like, I just don't need this anymore. As soon as it arrived, I was just like, I really don't need this. So I spent $1,600 on this sword, and I've hardly touched it. And I think that is a beautiful lesson in the sense that, like, wow, maybe my son will have this. My son will take this and do something with it, or somebody, maybe a student, doesn't matter. It's there. But what it taught to me was there was a journey to that process of creating that, but then realizing that, you know, my skill is not about this manifestation of something that gets created or designed.
That's somebody else's skill.
That's somebody else's skill. Yeah, that's right.
No, I don't know. I mean, this doesn't necessarily have a lot to do with it, but when you were talking about this, it did enter my head. British military sabers were not sharpened until you went into battle. So there are many actually used service swords out there which are unsharpened.
Interesting.
Completely unsharpened. Right? Because it was just like, you're not going to need to sharpen it. So they would practice with blunted swords and, you know, all that kind of thing so that they could get used to the weapon. But they didn't want to put an edge on it because you risk, you know, weakening the blade and cracking.
What made you think of it?
When he was talking about the different weapons and transferring things, and you know, if things not necessarily. There's a lot of stuff I think in martial arts that is popular knowledge and is totally false. You know, and I think one of the things is a lot with swords, right? How sharp were they? Were they sharp? You know, razor, you know, this, that, and the other. Lightsaber, we don't have to worry about that. That's not a thing, right? When you're sparring with other weapons, then you have to start thinking about that. You know, was that sufficient force? Was that a good enough hit to really count? Was that, you know, anything like that? But with a lightsaber, like you said, it's like, okay, that's done.
But it's also what Musashi says in his Book of Five Rings: there's no man cutting grip,
right?
You know, and it's just like, oh, here's my grip that's gonna cut people, and it's just like, okay,
yeah,
just go,
yeah.
You know, and show up. It's like, it's interesting. It's you know,
what's the best advice for your grip on the sword? Don't let go of it.
Yeah, right on.
That's about it.
Except when you do.
Except when you do. Yeah.
Yeah, but so
with both hands.
Speaking of grip, then, so in your interpretation of Djem, so one of the things that people are going to see when they look at the links and see the stuff is that you actually play around with a lot of grip. So it's very important to your interpretation of it, right? You have your, the kind of the yin yang grip with the salute, right? You have, supported grips that you're doing. I mean, you want to talk about your interpretation of why those grips are there, if the point isn't to kind of create a fetish out of them to turn them into specific techniques.
Well, why don't we integrate that back when we start talking about the actual stuff that we did, because we'll go through the material that we went through here. I want to give a little bit of a prelude so people know where we're coming from here.
This might be a good prelude thing. It might also be a good conclusion thing, and it also it's going to be awesome because I just
we'll just say it then.
No, we were talking about the form and about its qualities. This gemso form, and Damon said, "Oh, it's like a fire," and then you gave this really cool context to the fire that was not the first thing that comes to people's minds.
Oh, right. Where like people think of wildfire, but also fire is something that gives homage to everybody, like a smoldering coals around a campfire. It's like fire in all its manifestations, or in the sense that you can feel welcomed, or it's a place where knowledge is transmitted in the sense that everyone sits around a fire and shares stories.
And that was kind of it with introducing all this ancient well, not ancient, but now deceased, wonderful Chinese master who brought the form. And like what we've been doing for this weekend has really been sitting about a fire, and what we hope people will be doing after they take this form and play with it themselves. And so this is a little bit of a bridge into, well, here's what we actually did.
Yeah, I think that too is, when you have that, we were talking about metaphor earlier, right? And there are certain metaphors which are universal throughout all languages, and fire being associated with, passion and love and anger and things that take you over, are all very universal. And that's what usually people think about. We don't think about how we use it, right? But fire is what brought us out of animal life. Right? It could have been our opposable thumbs, but until we had fire, we were nothing more than really smart dogs.
Damon was talking about the sort of sphere that you're creating around yourself, doing all of these interesting cross-handed positions and wheels with the sword. And again, that sphere is sort of a container for fire.
It is. That's absolutely right. And like, isn't fire when it's in outer space in a sphere?
Yes.
Well,
so it's
fire doesn't do what it doesn't.
Probably doesn't.
It doesn't. You don't really like if you light a match on the space shuttle. It kind of is just like blue or something.
I think he's talking about like the sun. Like very successful fire.
Yeah. Well, that's plasma.
Fire.
Yeah, successful.
Successful fire.
That's hilarious.
What?
So the lightsaber.
But so is a lightsaber blade, right? The lightsaber blade is made of the same thing.
So it's
And they're extremely successful.
Right.
They are.
They're both extremely successful until they supernova. But we won't talk about that.
Sabers can supernova? It's really worrying. Right.
What?
You were about to say something really good.
I was.
Yep.
Okay. So I lost it though.
I could feel it. I could feel it.
The fire, it burned up in the fire.
Burned up in the fire.
We were around the spheres that
Yeah.
form around you, which are container of the fire.
Oh yeah. And so always, I think we talked about this earlier, is like drawing to the edge of the sphere with moving not to contract in one expression, but to expand, so one can have strength in one's expression of the form.
So I did mine for a little bit,
Yeah.
and we had this thing called contra energy. Have you
Uh-huh.
heard about this?
Depends which school of mind, but what do you mean by it?
Well, the way we were doing it is that when you hit poses or
Yeah.
whatever, you imagine, like, if I'm doing like this,
Yeah.
I'm imagining this line extending out
Yeah.
and then circling
Like,
back
Parabola
Yeah.
style.
and coming in like that.
Yeah.
So we're constantly doing stuff like
You
that,
go
and that
from the front,
reminds
but it's
me of
being
that.
informed through your back, so you won't
Mhm.
forget to use your back. Yeah.
Right.
Always a connection.
Yeah. That is absolutely there. There's basically like two kinds of mind. There's sort of like the horrible thing that's always caricatured, which is face and hands and
Well,
stuck in a box.
Okay, yeah,
And
that's
then there's more like trying to create counterweights that look like something's happening to you, but you're actually doing the opposite.
my teacher called that stuff pantomime.
Yeah. Your teacher was, using the
Michael Lee.
the
Yeah.
right words for the right
Yes,
stuff.
yes, Michael
for
Lee.
sure.
Yeah, he was a student of like all the things.
Oh,
He was in the Polish schools and stuff.
it's not about lightsabers. That Polish mind ballet stuff is really hard to do. And they're frightening. Yeah. Very hard.
That seems very much like lightsabers.
Lightsabers look more friendly, I think. Yeah. So
Well, we're friendly. We can take you some other places.
Is there anything from our online community saying anything?
We
Or
haven't
just
gotten any
talking?
comments yet.
Okay.
I haven't seen anything here.
Would like to hear more about the sphere and its contents.
Okay. Do you think we could take a 5-minute break and come back?
We can talk about.
Yeah, absolutely. Of course.
We'll hold this.
Okay.
Yeah,
There's
we
probably
got.
some kind of technological.
I mean, one
marvel.
thing we can do, because so as we got about, we can start transitioning into the actual discussion of the material.
Okay.
Right. Because now I'll let you recombobulate here for a second, and
All right, cool. Let him
we
out.
will let me. So one of the things that we have to that Form 5 and Damon mentioned this, and we've mentioned this a lot of times before, is that in our system, the 4 pillars form our base, right? That's Shicho, Makashi, Soresu, Ataru, right? Shicho is your base. Makashi is the one-on-one combat, and Soresu is your defense. Ataru is your attack, your power, all that stuff. When you get to Form 5, you're going to be taking all of these things and you're going to be putting them in and putting them into kind of one thing. And as we said it, the first is foundations, second is confrontation, third is defense, fourth is attack. When you get to here, Form 5 is synthesis. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to take each of those building blocks and intertwine them together to be a cohesive whole that we then bring in our case, whether we're doing a form to perform, whether we're doing a choreography to present, or whether we're entering a match to win. We're going to take those skills and we're going to use them where they're appropriate. One of the reasons that we do it this way is because there's a big, in the lightsaber community, there's a big thing about, or there was a big thing about the different forms being kind of different things, and it became a giant game of paper, scissors, rock, right? And that was mostly because of the video games, where you've got, Ataro will beat this, and that will beat that. We don't look at it that way, because anytime you fight, anytime you perform, anytime you do that, you should be bringing 100% of your skills to whatever that is, right? You shouldn't be saying, "Oh, I'm just going to use this. I'm just going to use this," right? If you're doing it, you do it all, right? And if you're not doing it right. But I would say that's probably something that we should, put out there for us. So when we're talking about Form 5, we'll be talking about these types of, ideas where we're going to be taking things from Ataro, taking things from Soresu, right? Now, obviously, Damon, you don't have the same vocabulary as we do, right? But when we put out the videos, we'll put our vocabulary there so people who are following us can follow this. It doesn't really matter what you call any of this stuff. That's just so you remember it and you know what you're doing.
It's the framework to guide the learning process.
Exactly. Just a way to organize it. You want to organize it differently, that's totally cool. But what you need to do is, when you organize it, be sure that you're organizing in a cohesive way where things build on each other. You don't want to have huge jumps. You don't want to have stagnant portions where you have a long time where a student is not going to be learning anything significant for that time. Those are all the kind of concerns. But for this, for Form 5, we're taking all of those skills and bringing them together. Now, like I said, a lot of the stuff will be kind of very specific for dueling, right? Or as we're talking about a lot about performance, and there's a lot of performance in lightsabers with choreography. And you know what? Even competitive fighting is performance. All right? It just is. If you look, I mean, you look at some of the people's entrances, in fights and stuff like that, and you can totally tell that it's a
Well, it's the old boxing adage that my punches have meaning.
yeah.
Everyone, has a narrative meaning, has a story they're trying to convey about
Yeah.
themselves. And that's why people fight socially. Why fight recreationally to begin with? It must mean something to you.
Mhm.
The ring, the list, the field, they're all stages.
Right, exactly. Who's the guy? Oh God, I always forget his name when I'm not. The MMA fighter who had the unbelievably elaborate entrance walks. Let me see here.
Even in competition,
Mhm.
to practice or for your private club or for tournament competition, there is an element of performance, there's an element of leadership.
Yep, like we were talking about, UFC even put it down there where it's, we can't have these two people laying in the middle of the ring for 15 minutes. You either submit them in 30 seconds or you get up and you start fighting again.
Interesting.
Yeah. Because I mean, if you've ever watched any of those old,
Oh yeah, man, I love the old ones. The dude with the boxing glove on it.
oh my God. Yeah, especially when a boxer would come in. Uh-oh. All right. What is his name? I can't find it here. It's on the tip of my tongue. It'll probably come to me in a bit. Genki Sudo. That's what it is. Look up Genki Sudo and you will see martial arts performance done very well. But anyway, so that's the kind of prelude to the material here. So we'll why don't we go ahead and turn it over to Damon here and maybe just kind of outline first of all your intended components and intended purposes for this types of things, which
Okay.
again, kind of what you're thinking about, get the overview, and then we can get into some of the more technical details of it.
All right.
of what went there. So
Cool.
just
So coming with this weekend, I think it was important to me to meet with a group of people and kind of tetra
you will not be
create,
allowed on TV. Go ahead.
to tetra create in a sense where I brought like 3 lines of the form and then us to dialogue what happens next. And to be able to take something that I feel was in some way that I was inspired by and transmitted to putting it in a different vein, much like I did way back in the day when I first started working with any type of Jedi anything. And as I said in a short film about Jedi, it's really an experiment for me. And this is always a constant experiment. And I think that experiment is a kind of evolved, flushed out I don't know, laboratory.
Yeah,
In
totally.
in the sense of seeing what can arise from bringing this into this worldview again and seeing what happens. Shicho was immensely successful. Not that I planned it to be successful, but it just kind of naturally was. And I think that let's see what happens with this. So that's kind of my, I don't know, goals. Yeah, my goals with that. And also, I think it's also just like kind of reconnecting with things in the sense of connecting with you, Chad, and Matt, and then connecting with us with our scholarly pursuits and the questions that I get asked about it, but also the inspiration I get through a dialogue, not only in words, but also kinesthetically through sparring or through sharing of forms, and to see tradition evolve in whatever medium that is. And so that's kind of like, and I don't want any of this stuff to go away. I don't want it to die. I want people to pick it up and run with it.
Absolutely. So, as we were talking about, this form is very particular. It's not very particular, but it takes on people who do it. When you see it done, everybody brings their self does kind of automatically come out because everybody is a little bit different. And probably because of also the way he teaches it. What are the qualities that you specifically are bringing into this form that you want transmitted from that, like whether it be the footwork or the cuts or or this kind of stuff or the way? Is there a specific type of thing that you think is or things
Mhm.
that will that is specifically
Flow, extension, um, ease of motion,
Mhm.
just on physical principles.
Yeah.
Engagement, being able to, I think, have a relationship with the sword that allows you to freely change your hand position without sacrificing the integrity of holding the sword. So it's not like you want to do a bunch of fancy grips and try to settle swordplay in the flick of a wrist.
right.
You want to have it's like a center within a center that allows you to have a relationship with the cutting nature of anything that's in your hand.
Yeah.
The ability to realize that these grips and grip sounds like this.
I know.
Grip. These attitudes can be worked with any weapon
Yeah.
and anything that fits in your hand, from a yardstick to a ladder. And I don't know. I think I want to see people. I want to communicate the idea of that you are, if you have good foundation in something, and it's not like a salad bar. You have a good foundation in something, and you feel the courage to go beyond that which you've been taught. Take your underlying principles and see what happens.
Yeah.
And but don't see what happens in isolation. Find a group of, I don't know, maybe it's like making a band, dude.
Yeah.
Like you get a band in a garage with a bunch of people and you start making music, but you need a bunch of people to dialogue with.
Yeah.
Don't do it by yourself in a mountain, even though that's an important step to do, is to take accumulated knowledge and withdraw pratyahara, right? Withdraw of the senses. You want to also have a community to dialogue with, but you also want to have a vocabulary and grammar and language to have a conversation with.
Yes.
You don't want to show up with only the alphabet.
Right. Yep. Or just the words.
That's right.
You need to know how the words fit together.
Speak your language, no matter what tradition or what worldview you come from. Speak it as well as you can and show up and be open to a different interpretation of that language.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because that language is a really good thing to go into. Obviously, because I'm totally into language, but language is a perfect example of that, because language is common to us all, right? We all speak it differently. You have a different vocabulary than I do. I have a different vocabulary than you do, right? And none of us have the same vocabulary now that we do when we're in another place.
Mm-hmm.
Like our vocabulary, the words that are available to us at any one time change. That's when you're talking about something and you try to say something that you've known all your life and you can't say it. It's on the tip of my tongue. That's your language center, right? Because it can only takes things that are specific to things. However, with art, especially performance art, martial arts, these expressive things, so many of my teachers in all of these things did not speak my language, right? Like Djem Hoy did not speak English when he taught things, because most of the people were Chinese and everything like that. But Ma Chao didn't speak much English. So, all that. We could communicate verbally about martial arts and stuff like that fairly well, but most of it is direct, non-linguistic communication. Technically non-linguistic communication. Now the reason that works is because we have this shared body of knowledge, right? It is like a language. If we're a dancer, we have a common language. It doesn't matter what type of dancer they are, right? Like you're saying, performers with pain and injury and everything like that, and we were discussing that the the worst injuries we've ever gotten are usually in training.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, it's just like, you know, no, it's like explaining how I screwed up my back. People are expecting me to have some grandiose story about being lifted up over my head, Bane style, cracked over somebody's knee, and I was putting on a belt and I coughed.
Yeah, man. I sprained my back brushing my teeth before rehearsal one day. What?
Yeah,
Silly.
Nice.
yeah. It's just that's the thing, and you know, the thing that most people fear with the physical confrontation, the physical in any contact sport, right, is it's in many cases, unless you're talking about high level competitive athletics, training is where you get the most injuries. And even in those high level like the Chicago Bulls, the lower tier players are still going through that. You know, maybe not Scottie Pippen, maybe not Michael Jordan, but maybe. We don't know, right? Because I've never met anybody who I've like worked with that hasn't had that experience, no matter how good they are. You know, and skill too, just like language, strength. You know, don't worry about strength. Don't worry about any of that kind of stuff. When you're talking about, you just go in there and just do what you got to do. Maybe you're not on today. Okay, that's fine.
Yeah, don't attach yourself to it.
Yeah.
You know, don't have a
Learn
masterpiece
something
complex
that
about it.
day, bring it back tomorrow.
Yeah, keep showing up.
Yeah, like I said, just keep getting back up.
You'll learn more from your mistakes than your successes.
Oh,
You
absolutely.
say that a lot. Keep saying it.
Yes, absolutely. We have an interview that we're going to edit together and put out. We've got a whole section of failure in there.
Know one's strengths too. Like when you do have a success, don't diminish it.
Yeah.
Own it. Keep it with you. However, at the same flip side of the coin, don't beat yourself up for making a mistake or not arriving the way that you thought you should.
Right.
So it's on both ends of the spectrum. Have that mature non-attachment of learning through the experience of success and the experience of mistake or failure, however you want to word it.
Yeah.
Both are equally important. Both need to be honored, and neither need to be diminished.
Yeah. Kobayashi Maru, the unwinnable situation. How do you react?
I'm going to reprogram the computer, dude.
Exactly. Do you cheat or do you just lose? You know, that's all the kind of thing. So, yeah, that's the thing. The nice thing about this stuff is that being physical, there's less of the cheating. You know, because you have to kind of show up.
Yeah,
you have to put it on the table.
Yeah, when you show up,
you know,
you're showing up with where you're at, and if you had your morning coffee or not, dude.
Yeah, exactly right. All right, so we're talking. So this particular form, it is based on a two-handed sword form, right? So that's what's going to be coming out. Most people are using the sabers with two hands in this particular thing. Now we can get into the grips, because that's probably going to be the thing that is going to be the most strange and the thing that we have not really gone over too much in our stuff. Right.
Well, there's the reverse grip in our angle.
Right.
Someone's here. Oh, there he
Yep,
is.
that's Flynn. How you doing, Flynn? Can you hear us?
Hey guys, how are you doing?
All right,
Long time
very
no
good.
see, dude.
General Sun. Good to see you, brother. Good to
Good
see
to
you.
see you too, man. Where are you now?
I'm in my store, baby.
Oh,
Which is in?
This is in Fairfield County, Solano Town Mall.
There you go.
It's going really well. We're getting a lot of classes. We have some guys using it.
Cali.
for-
You're in Cali.
today.
I didn't know you were in California.
Yeah, I'm Fairfield. Right between San Francisco and Sacramento.
Very good.
And not to be rude, but gentlemen, nice to see all of you as well. Hi.
Yes, thank
Hey,
you.
good to see
Yes,
you.
good to see you too. If for those of you just joining in, Flynn Michael, been on the show bunches of times. One of the founders with Damon here with the New York Jedi. So yeah, so we've got quite the reunion here, right? Yes. So anyway, we were about to go into the specific grips and changing of grips that we're using in this particular set.
So Flynn, this was something that we never got to actualize when we were together, was this form. And I remember when you used to do a lot with the double-bladed saber, you would spin it a lot and have a lot of changing grips. And I think that I don't know, we never just got to actualize it. What do you think? Let's take your saber spinning when you did it with the double-bladed. What was in your mind with that? Were you thinking, wow, look, this is something I can do. How can I do this combatively? How do I engage this? How do I make it entertaining?
Well,
Let's start there and then bring it back to what we're doing.
Well, it's interesting because if I'm not mistaken, Damon, when you're doing the new Form 5 stuff, you're putting a lot of leverage on the rear of the hilt, right?
Yep, both the rear and the fore part of the guard, yeah.
Okay, so with the double, I mean, yeah, I do a lot of double stuff, but I'm always moving my arms down around and kind of like using it as like leverage points, almost like contact saber now.
All right, cool.
But my typical saber that I use now, specifically actually built with my rear pommel ball joint, because I'm always doing that whole leverage point. And I thought I saw you doing a lot of that in that video you posted.
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, I think that's very similar.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
saber in the sense of like
form.
fire spinning kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, it all works. It's all about leverage and balance for me, you know.
Cool. Yeah, for me, I think the changing of grip is having one hand relating to the center, and then the other hand being almost like I don't know, commentary. Is that a weird way to think about it? But having a supportive relationship with the other guiding hand, one being the engine and one kind of steering that power, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, that's actually how I teach people to steer their saber, is to get the leverage point of the axis in the center and using it to basically draw or paint their saber into that direction by directing from the rear. So yeah, I do that technique a lot.
Nice. Awesome.
I like how we're all thinking about the same lines. It's all like running the story now. It's become more and more obvious to me that all these different styles, we're all using the same physics. It's all the same leverage points and exploratory and stances, and it's really great to see all these people coming together with all this stuff.
Yeah, man.
That was the whole premise of about 7 years ago.
Yeah, dude. It's like pop ramen, dude. Just add water.
Yeah.
That's it.
What flavor are you?
Yeah. No. Yeah. Yeah.
Oriental.
There's no real martial arts are all the same. Right,
Yeah.
especially weapons martial arts, right? You're not going to get a totally different thing with a longsword. No matter if it has a cross guard, no matter if it has how
that
long
was
it is.
Yu Chung Hoi's thing, dude.
Exactly.
Every culture has a long sword, and I want to create this form to show people the beauty of my culture.
Right,
And
and
so this is an exoneration of that.
Yeah, and me and Matt, we get together. I'm from a Chinese background, he's coming from a German longsword background. We're looking there. Okay, let's see what's the same and what's different. Most of this is the same.
The hilt design makes a difference in some things, but in the bulk of the work, this discussion about guiding and strength and direction, strength and steering, it's a conversation we were having.
Yeah, and the conversations that were being had, in the 1500s, right? And anywhere you go, you talk about weapon work, right? The rear hand is the engine, right? That's the one that's going to be the more active one.
Talik, I wish you were a hologram. With us over here.
Yeah.
That would be rad.
Yeah, that'd be very cool.
We need holograms, dude.
Actually, I don't know if you can see him from here, but Talik, the helmet's sitting on a mannequin right over there.
Nice. Still got it. That's great.
So I get to have Talik in my studio all day long.
Is your blade still orange?
Orange and white, those are my colors.
Nice.
Yeah, dude.
All right.
Hey,
So-
when you're talking about the hands,
Yeah,
you
so-
had this thing right on the first day we were doing these warm-ups, and you were talking about your Beijing opera teacher and the advice he gave you for coordinating the hands.
Yeah,
I thought
in
that
our
was
in our
really-
limited conversation, show how Pengyo, he would talk about your hands had to be always good friends, and whether you can think of it like dancing like old rave style, or you can think of it like Tai Chi ruler status, or magnetism between your palms. I think when I showed up to him, I think I had a really disconnect between one side of my body and the other side of my body, and I think it was because I was moving too fast. And he would just always be like, slow down. Like, what the hell? It's like almost doing too much. And when he said create things as good friends, it created a relationship between whether we're engaged between two people, or are my limbs engaged with my hands or with my feet, and I think the hands as good friends principle is basically your limbs as good friends, in the sense of that don't forget your hand work, spine work, footwork kind of thing. To quote Shiraishi Sensei, it's like hand work, footwork, spine work.
We often say we have one arm, two hands, right? So that the arm goes through here. So nothing can happen in this arm without something happening in this arm, right? So you're constantly, there's, this one goes forward, this one kind of goes back.
Is that a Masha Tongbei saying?
That's where I heard it. I don't know if it
Really
originates there, but yeah, we say, one arm, two
The right hand
hands.
knows it now with the left hand.
Right. You got a rope with two things on the end of it. And so like in Pigua, in our Pigua, we're constantly, doing the chopping and stuff like that. There's no energy in the arms. Your arms are limp, right? And it's almost like a chain whip, right? Where you're using your core and to whip that around as hard as you can, so that this remains straight. And then when you hit, there's a tension and then relaxes.
That which is straight must appear flexible in motion, and that which is flexible must appear straight in motion.
Yeah.
It's interesting. I had one of my kids come in today.
Sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, just that what you just said, Damon, was really important in what you were working on. You could say it again.
Yeah, so like with that which is if you have something yang, you train it yin. If you have something yin, you train it yang, right? For a really rough kind of umbrella. That which is straight must appear flexible in motion, and that which is flexible must appear straight in motion. That's no different than, Flynn, what we had when we had the short film about Jedi Dude. That was all on that blackboard there. Those were the same principles. Don't have a favorite weapon, la da 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 da.
Yeah.
So like your straight, hard sword needs to be so
mobile. Exactly, and that's how Chad brought up
curved.
the bendy pencil trick.
Yeah, the rubber pencil. I'm always saying
pencil.
that. The rubber pencil. Gabriel called it the liquid sword, right? Where, and if anybody who's done the rubber pencil in school, it's the exact same thing. If you're doing this stuff right, like if in our system, the chromosphere is the best place to do this. If you're doing this right, what will happen is it will look like the sword is flopping around in there.
Alive.
Right. And then when we take a soft weapon like a chain whip, right, or a rope dart, when we're using that, there can be no slack in the rope. You have to keep swinging it so the weight is pulling it taut, right? So that's where that comes from. You have to put a lot of power into a soft weapon because there's no power in it in and of itself, and there's lots of power in a blade. Like you take a dog out, right, and just lift it up and then put it in and then drop it down. You're cutting, right? Because that thing is an axe, a cleaver, and if it's hitting meat, nothing. Shoop, just right there. No skill needed whatsoever.
Hey,
There's also something we
training there right now.
What's that?
Is there some crew of yours training there right now?
Yeah, there is. We're open. This is Sunday. Yeah, so this is
awesome.
I could go into the office to be quieter.
No, I like seeing the people behind you doing stuff, dude. It's awesome.
Yeah, it's coming. People are really getting behind it. Robert behind me, we had to go to Celebration, and he took a week off of work to help us out. So that was, the crew is people love the studio. It's coming together nice. But I wanted to point out something too. With the leverage that you were just talking about, Chad, with the rope dart, I actually have poi in the studio because we're always talking about the planes of motion and how they spin around you. And the poi gives it a really good tool to have that, like how much force do you need to keep that going and how much speed, because it's not a fixed length. It's actually a soft weapon, like you just said, right? And then the other cool thing was one of my kids came in today and he wanted to practice doing reverse grip. And what I started really figuring out with it was that the reverse grip was definitely obviously more for defense, but everybody likes Ahsoka Tano. They want to see how you can use it. But I noticed that like when I loosened my grip and it became more of a whipping strike, that's when it became a little bit more usable in my mind. And that actually lent for what you were talking about with Damien, with the leverage on the back end swinging out. But with the reverse grip, there's actually a really unique leverage hammer kind of motion that goes along with that. It was interesting to work out today.
Reverse grip.
What kind of poi are you using? Using fire poi or like the little globes? What are you showing us? Oh yeah, those ones. Cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. Poi is fun, especially if you get like the double. They teach you like some nice double flowers and like forward ones and stuff like that. It's no different than a lot of the broadsword stuff where it's scrim and stuff. That's great that you're doing that there.
Yep. So anyway, let's talk about the different grips.
Okay.
That are and the switching between them.
Okay.
That are happening in this particular form.
I think every grip, even including reverse grip that Flynn brought up, I think that one has to be appropriate and situational, and two, have the vocabulary and the dexterity to be able to switch up at any time. Don't, like I said before, way back in the day when we were in New York together, man, it's just like don't attach yourself to one specific technique. Know the vocabulary of the technique so you can become a very informed practitioner, and know the ways of all professions, right? Like get it and practice diligently and practice with great skill and practice with a lot of love and sharing and gratitude. And I think when you do that, then the art begins to inform you of what is appropriate in one situation.
Sure.
Yeah, it's only a Sith is an absolutes.
Except in that statement.
Except in that statement. That's hilarious.
Wait,
man.
so are you a Sith?
Wait, what? Huh? What?
Wait. Did you just say you were a Sith?
That's funny.
Never.
Yeah. Do what I do, not what I say.
So I think that, don't experiment for yourself. Take these grips and do something with it. Get back to us and see what you discover.
Yeah.
If they work for you, cool. If they don't, cool. Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
What I have brought forth this weekend is my personal flavor. And what you do with it is your personal interpretation and your personal flavor. And I think it's important to explore.
Yeah,
And it also depends upon which saber you're using too. A little bit longer, a little bit shorter.
He was using
the practitioner, like you said, totally preference.
Yeah. Use what's appropriate for yourself. Exactly. Totally. What were you gonna say, Chad?
Oh, that was just I was saying it was a mindset.
Yeah. Really well weighted one.
Yeah. So yeah, and we so we're used to the regular sword grip, right? What other grips do we have in here?
We have this one. We have the yin yang one that's this way, which kind of sets a consciousness, I feel, to the form rather than something I would kind of routinely use. We have the over grip. I don't really have a reverse grip in this form, even though I do.
It might be when you're transferring
stuff.
Yeah. Drawing out. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I do practice fun stuff with reverse grip just so I have it, or reversing the sword in my hand, do a reverse grip. We have this push pull, this one, kind of floating grip with the palm on the pommel. And then moving it that way, and then also just kind of floating around the sword this way. I don't know if you can imagine.
I think we have a lightsaber.
Oh, okay, cool. All right, let's do it. So we got this,
And actually,
this,
we can,
and then this.
if you want to
and
stand up, we can
Oh, it's cool. Cool like this.
get you.
Like they're like flowing that way, this way. And these are a lot on everything that we put on. So we have more detailed videos later.
Yeah.
But I think the main thing is that I have a lot of control here, and this is just doing its thing. Right? Hanging out there like that. I think that's kind of like all I have to say on it.
Yeah, and
Thank you, Ben.
I think one of the interesting things about this stuff, and I'll use this here because it's shorter. But we're talking about like this grip here. What's grips? So yeah, we were talking about the, we don't want to make it sound like grip, as it
Yeah.
Right.
It's almost like
grip's just like, how are you holding it, right? Your hand holds.
Grip connotates a kind of like
your hands on.
Right.
dead hands. Kind of
Exactly. Hand placement is probably a better idea. So you got your normal kind of thing here. And we mentioned this before. Our rear hand is going to be our active hand like that. And then this is going to be our kind of guiding hand there. When we start moving into stuff like this, right, this seems really, really weird. But as you're going around into positions like this, right, this becomes much more kind of usable, right? So if I'm coming around like here, like this, I can get in there. Now with a lightsaber, you can, that's a better strike, right? But what that really does here, when I'm holding it here like this is really putting a clamp on this, right? So my thumbs are on opposite sides here, but they're kind of there. If I'm here like this, when I hold something like this, like when I'm deadlifting, when I get to up to my higher levels, that's how I hold it. Because when your hands are like this pretty much locks things into place because your hands can now help each other, right? Where is that going to come in handy? Probably in binds, probably in this. And one of the things that Yu Cheng Hui was always talking about was this movement here with this hand, wrapping around, letting go, grabbing on again, grabbing here differently, whether you come up under here or to right there. Sometimes, this could be pushing, all kinds of stuff.
Lightsaber, but that's
You can't do that with a lightsaber. Right.
Yeah, I think it's only up to what are you working with and where are your limitations with what you're working with.
Right.
And that's what it comes down to. And what are the limits of your creativity? Because we're all very creative people. And I think it's good to explore creativity to the sense of almost foolishness, in the sense of like, oh, wow, that was really foolish and that didn't work. And then, just experimenting the way scientists do.
Absolutely.
Experiment, find out what works good for you, and then own it and go forth. And it's dangerous to go along and take this.
Yes. And that's the thing with reverse grip. The reverse grip is everybody loves it in the lightsaber thing, but it doesn't really work very well in our context. For the very reason, this very leverage thing, you're putting your force on this end where your thumb is not. So as you're going here, you have no support. So if you start using reverse grip, if you're using it, properly in a kind of a historical kind of like utilitarian way, you have to
You mean like a
know
crowbar?
that. Right. I mean, you have to know that, right? What was reverse grip used for with swords? It was for adding, pressure. It was for
adding pressure and keeping a secure grip, especially if you're trying to pry into some armor.
exactly. It is literally a crowbar. You're coming in, you go, and then stabbing as much as you can.
But
feels very bad.
Oh, yes.
Also for point control in very extended positions.
Right. Exactly. Yep. Exactly. So there are uses for all of these things. Like you said, find out what those uses are.
And find out how you can use those uses the best way you personally
Right.
feels
Exactly.
your truth of using them. Do you want them to be a flourish? Do you want them to be power? Do you want them to be something that is intimidating? Like, who cares? Find out for yourself and then bring it out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But so, I
But
mean,
practice hard. Practice good with strength.
yes. Yeah. But practice.
Yeah, but practice, exactly.
That's the one thing. This is in martial arts, but I mean, there's all these people who are doing all these things, I hope you guys are training.
Yeah, the way isn't training. I'm
Right?
a believer of that.
If you're competing, compete. If you're competing, train like a competitive athlete, right? Don't train like a hobbyist, right?
I'm
Because
trying to think. Was there? Wow, we've been talking for a while. Is there anything more that we need to touch on? I mean, I've kind of run the gambit of things I wanted to communicate, but I want to make sure that people. Is there anything online that's come to us that we should address?
we have not gotten any
Flynn,
comments
Talik,
online
is there
here.
anything that you want to bring up before we head out? I want to just make sure a lot of these things are honored as we go forward. Yeah, closing thoughts.
Yeah, we don't have
really excited about everything.
We don't have any comments going on in the.
Flynn, I'm really glad you could join
Internets.
us. It's good to see you. It's been many years.
Maybe as a closing thought,
You too, David.
kind of go around our little circle for the people who've been here for this weekend.
Yeah.
What was your kind of favorite memory? What was the?
Oh,
what was
that's a
the-
very good idea.
man.
Yeah, I want to do that.
happened for you?
Right. All right.
Okay.
We'll start with Matt.
I think
Moving on.
Matt, it's hard to hear you too. So if you lean in and be a little louder, I can hear you then.
Oh, you got it. Cool, dude.
Let's try to move this over here more.
we came together in essence because we were all, to one degree or another, martial artists. But the part that I really most appreciated was our downtimes, or when we're building our community here. The chance to just sit and talk. And I made a comment earlier today where it feels like we're always together. Not that we've only just been together for 2 days. This is something that it feels like we have always been in these conversations.
Yeah.
It's a great river.
Yeah, like when we started talking, it's almost like we're continuing a conversation that we had been having, right? Not that we're starting a new one. There was none of that, kind of like feeling out where people are or anything like that. It was just, hey,
Let's
what
go.
about this?
Time to show up. Yeah,
know?
right on.
And that's
Everyone-
very free.
Everyone was present. Everyone was authentic, and it was a great deal of fun to just sit and talk,
Yeah.
both about this and about other elements of our lives.
And watching Last Jedi last night,
That was a lot of fun.
that was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I enjoyed it the second time.
We're gonna be doing a Game of
We didn't
Thrones
watch
night
it-
tonight.
We didn't watch it twice in one night.
So we're
Oh, yeah,
all we're all
that's
getting
the
ready
thing.
for the big battle.
Watching it.
Well,
Maybe
my
Not caught
favorite.
up yet.
Oh,
No Game of Thrones spoilers tonight, please.
okay.
Oh, okay.
All right. So I guess Matt will not be joining us.
My favorite moment, not to geek out too much, but it would have to have been, doing Sicho with General Sun today, which is something that, I have been thinking about for a long time. So that was very rewarding. And it was very interesting to see, all the different house sets of it that are out there, all the different, variations of your Sicho that exist now. And being able to do two of them side by side, that was a lot of fun.
That was a lot of fun.
And then think, of course, about how that all relates to everything that we have been doing with Form 5 all weekend.
Right.
Bringing those two forms together.
Yeah.
Beautiful. I think today I don't know how visible this is online elsewhere, but we were doing a whole bunch of little clips where I was translating.
Dude, that was rad.
Damon
Interpreting
French
into
Dude, that was
French.
so good.
And I,
Interpreting.
of course, I was interpreting. Excuse me, Chad is sensitive man. I immediately forgot all my French, of course, and especially anything in French that might remotely have anything to do with the sword. And, but while watching Damon do this really slowly, we've been talking about these yin yang grips, and something that Damon does that is wonderful to see in the form is it's kind of tracking back and forth across the line, and there's a little rotation. It tracks across a different diagonal, but he's doing all these wonderful cross steps and twists, and I just had this vision of his upper body coordinating in the spiral, and then his lower body coordinating in the spiral, and how this wrapped together. And Damon was talking about his basic principles of this form when he made his list earlier. He said, "Oh, there's extension," and I was thinking, "There's extension. There's also like this kind of there's centrifugal force and centripetal force.
Oh yeah,
There's also
those are great principles.
the massive whirlpool that's going down and in." And I really thought, you know, and I can reevaluate this later, but for me, it was like thinking, oh, this kind of clunky, clumsy thing is actually a very, very simple set of variations on a single double helix spiral.
Cool.
And that was a great moment of learning. Like, why bother? You know, I usually work with a one-handed sword. Why bother with the two-handed gem? Why work with the lightsaber? And oh, okay, there's really something here. It's this wonderful double helix.
Awesome. Geez, for me, I feel like the weekend has been full of so many great things. I think it's unifying with the lightsaber community again at large. And for me, since I've been now that I'm a dad and have a family, and it's just like re-emerging with this. And then also just when I left the lightsaber community, went on tour as a dancer, and then coming back to this whole journey of doing that as an artist, and then creating a family and having just this wonderful, beautiful family. And then like, okay, taking the maturity of that process and coming back into this world has been something. And all of your support here for doing that I'm very humbled by it. And I think one of the greatest things for me was doing the shoot show with you, Ben. That was like totally rad. And also realizing when I re-demonstrated it that it evolved.
Yeah.
Yeah. And and also having this symposium here and seeing Flynn again after like almost 10 years has probably been is just really great. And just realizing how much the idea of something like this brings us all together outside of any type of demographic that we are. And I think when I first came in New York and Flynn and I met each other and worked together, I think that was a real driving force for me, was how can I take this and put it into a different worldview and see it still exists here. And the fact that that just is still happening I think that's the greatest affirmation of that. And you know, this is going to be in prosperity for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And so when, you know, I don't know if my family's watching it now, but you know, my son's going to get older and he's going to watch this, and then that's going to be cool.
Yeah. I'm with you on that one. There's so many great moments from this weekend. I mean, I have been wanting to do something like this for a very, very long time, to get a group of martial artists together to sit there and just workshop. That's why we called these things the symposiums to begin with, because this was the goal. A real symposium, the real meeting of minds where you just kind of lock yourself, sequester yourself away from everything and work on things and come up with something. And that, for me, I have to thank all of you, especially Damien, for coming up and making this reality, making TPLA reality. All of you out there, all the people who donated, all the people who, you know, who watch our videos, you know, who comment and, you know, and support us, and all those that watch us and don't like us, and, you know, think that we suck, you know, you're part of it too. But
Surely,
surely no one, no, not on the internet.
Surely wouldn't.
Surely wouldn't do that.
Surely wouldn't do that.
And I
We're not really worried about Shirley, though.
Shirley.
Yes. But anywho, yeah, I mean, this as a moment in and of itself is something that I'm going to treasure forever. You know, you hear about these things happen, right? You know, where like even like the making of the Shellen Temple, the movie, right? Where, yeah, it was under like kind of, you know, cynical, you know, government sponsored things, but kind of what happened there was they had all these people together who've been used to working with each other on the Beijing shoe team and all this stuff. And even though the movie itself is fairly bad,
Please,
there's a chemistry there. There's, you know, that's why people still watch it and why people still like it.
Yeah, there's a purpose, man.
Because they made 3 movies in that whole thing, and nobody watches the other 2.
Right.
but I think Shaolin Kids is the best. The one with Yu Hoi, he's that one, where he's the Wudong master, and then Yu Hai is the Shaolin master. Yu Hai has what, 5 sons?
Dude, I can't remember.
And then it's basically like 7 brides for 7 brothers with kung fu.
Yeah, that's right.
I love that movie. That's so fun. But it's, you know,
I mean,
that like totally happened this weekend.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Yes, we all had marriages, we all got divorces. You know, it's been an entire life here.
I just have to say that, you know, none of this would have been possible without the support of all you guys, and also with the support of my family, with my wife and my son, and their encouragement and the long term. I mean, my wife is a very skilled martial artist, and the fact that we have our own conversations about this stuff, which I value and which I treasure, and the fact that we can come together, and then when my son will grow up and see this kind of stuff, just means a lot to me. It's when you have a family, it becomes way bigger than yourself, and you don't get attached to anything else that you ever thought you were attached to, and it's a beautiful experience. And when any of y'all Jedi start having kids, we can talk.
Yeah. Well, that would be a conversation.
That would be
a long time.
May the force be with you on that. It's beautiful, man.
Hey guys, I want to call attention to something though.
Huh?
I want to call attention to something that I'm extremely appreciative, and that's the people in the room that helped make that announcement happen from the French Fencing Federation, because we have been doing all this stuff for a long time. We've been talking to each other. We've been working on stuff. We've been directing our crews and refining our craft. And, you know, I've got a new opportunity going here with my stuff. And it's when that announcement was made and it appeared on so many news outlets. Like I have an entrepreneurial coach that I'm talking with about investments and stuff like that. And he Googled all that stuff when I started talking with him. And he's like, wait a minute, this is on the Washington Post. And I'm like, yeah, it's a big deal. So the thing that I'm really appreciative for you guys making all that happen was it completely legitimized all the effort that we've been doing for all these years. And Damon, I'm going to quote you from that movie again. You know, they can laugh all they want, but we are practicing and they are not.
That's true.
It's a profound statement, because as far as I'm concerned, the martial artist is the person wielding the tool. I don't care if it's a glow stick or if it's a 2x4. You know, your leverage points, your training, your stance, and Damon, your professional dance experience just makes it all look even the better. And that's what we all strive for. You know, we're all admiring each other and all the effort that we've all done. And I love the saber community. I've been addicted to it since it started all these years ago, and I'm still swinging, and people are still having fun and they're learning. And that's what's really exciting. This is a really cool moment in time for all of us. So guys, thank you so much for making it all happen.
Right on. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, thank you. And you know, that's the thing. I mean, I think people should kind of understand this idea that Damon and Flynn, you know, okay, so I've told this story before, but I'll tell it again because we have both of you here, right? I was watching Jedi Junkies, right, and saw that little segment in there. And I went, you can fight with these things now? I immediately called up Matt. I was like, oh man, you gotta come over, right? And then we found these things because we had done Sword Lab for 2 years before, you know, trying to find, and that's just before we had all the sweet poly weapons and stuff like that, you know. But we found a lightsaber, and we're just, oh my god, this is perfect, right?
The first two that came in the mail, and
yeah,
it was world changing.
Absolutely. And you know, we brought it in, and we brought our kind of competitive, you know, sparring, HEMA, and fighting, you know, aspect to it. It took a little while to catch on, but it caught on.
Combative experiments.
Competitive experiments, yes, exactly, right? Because we're not really bashing each other.
Honestly expressing yourself.
There you go. Yes. Or as the terrible line in The Matrix says, "You never really know someone until you fight them."
Like you could sell fucking anything. Did I just say that?
Yes, you did.
Uh,
Again, Daniel will not be appearing on TV anytime soon.
Dr. Daniel.
Yes.
Dr.
Yes.
Dr. Professor.
Dr. Professor Daniel over here is unsuitable for TV.
Well, it happened, and here
Yeah.
we are, and we're still, and it's exactly what you said, Tally, forward momentum. There's been so many people that has come through all of our gate that needs to be acknowledged and need to realize that we were all part of that journey. And I'm so thankful for all of those experiences, and I'm thankful for everyone out there. And I'm very glad that we have rekindled something here with this meeting today.
Yeah. So, I mean, this is really, and that's what I was kind of going for, is there's a circle here, you know, because you and I, you and Flynn, everything like that, you know, two things kind of starting off, one here, and then, you know, meeting in the middle, you know, after all that time, you know, and that's the thing. What's happening right now is there's now a history being written of this. There's now a history of it, right? And with the French thing, you now have a kind of Martin Luther moment, right? Where you can put a pin. Exactly. You can put a pin in this before and after, because, like you said, legitimacy, right? I'll go into this just real quick.
Primary school?
Yeah, it is exactly. Yeah.
All right, so I'll go into this real quick.
I really want to know.
Okay, I'll go into this real quick. Why the French thing is such a big deal is because the way they do sport over there is all through the government. So you have to come up with a cohesive system, a cohesive rule set, something that can be judged, something that's objective, something that can be, you know, applied to people so that if they want to open up a lightsaber school,
Their criteria.
the government comes in, right, gives the criteria. Are you qualified to do this? Obviously. So for lightsaber to be adopted into that as the fourth fencing weapon is
The fourth fencing weapon. That's what.
that's the fourth fencing weapon. They have
that's rad.
they have foil, epee, saber, and lightsaber.
Dude, that's rad. I didn't know that's what happened.
Yeah, that's what happened.
Cool. I know the fourth fencing weapon. Can I get
Exactly.
a bumper sticker that says that?
Yeah. And
Fourth weapon.
hopefully,
The fourth weapon.
yeah,
the
hopefully
fourth weapon.
we'll be doing some stuff on the French system very soon.
Fourth weapon. We all need t-shirts.
Oh my God, yes,
The
fourth weapon.
Yeah, on May the 4th. Yeah.
May the fourth be
May the
Oh yeah.
Flynn, can you get on that? Can you
Yeah.
sell that?
Yeah. Well, yeah, I'm gonna go get those some t-shirts made out. Patent pending.
We definitely covered all the
Yeah, definitely.
All the angles have been covered.
Yeah.
Hey,
Angles.
actually, I have a question.
Flynn is speaking. Flynn.
I have a question. Then somebody actually asked me this, and because I mean, obviously, I had this conversation with them. Somebody pointed out that the trademark for lightsaber might be ineffective now.
No, it's not.
Announcement.
Nope.
It's not. Are you sure about that?
Nope. It will not. Nope. Number one, because they're calling it an LED saber, right? They are specifically staying away from trademark terms. They don't want to use anything that's going to get them in trouble. It's sabre de laser or whatever.
Sabre de laser.
Sabre de laser.
Sabre du or sabre de? I'm not sure which.
Well, that's one thing for them to say it, but the problem with the trademark genericism is that it depends upon public mind share, not what somebody's doing.
Yeah.
That's the problem here.
Take legal advice from a YouTube show, please.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. My cousin is a trademark attorney, and she's walked me through this stuff to the nth degree to get our trademarking up. And yeah, lightsaber is still a trademark term, and it especially in America, right? You might be able to get away with it in another country because you can claim some sort of language thing, but here in America, definitely, it has not been generic. And if it does go generic, that would probably mean that something changed in the laws that would allow Disney to release, that would force Disney to release a lot of its trademarks. Like Mickey Mouse. I mean, because they are really the ones who kind of got us into this mess because they changed the whole public domain law.
That's right.
Yeah. So it doesn't go in there. So yeah, I would not go start freely throwing that around, especially now, because for a long time the trademark on the term lightsaber was held by Hasbro because it was the name of the toy, right? And Lucasfilm bought the trademark back, and now it's registered under them. So unless you're licensing out directly from them, it's still going to be fair game. And until that changes, I think it's going to be generic.
Oh yeah, and it's a very it's an important note for people that are actually doing these, like, have to have that name in your title in your name. You know, it's for legal use. And correct me if I'm wrong, Craig, Chad, because you said you have an attorney you talk to about it. When people are using the word as a descriptor or in generic context as what's the word, commentary, then
commentary, parody, or anything like that, that's all fair game.
Yeah, that's the only safe zone.
Yeah, fair use.
I think at this point we're beginning to diverge from the
The
purpose
topic
of
here.
what we're
Right.
we're here today.
Right. Yes. But so yeah, we'll put a pin in that one, and we'll leave that for another time.
Damon, let's wrap up. Damon,
Come back.
Sorry, once you guys start talking about that stuff, it's good.
Damon.
Yeah. You should have stayed here, and then we would have not talked about it.
All
so
right,
long.
sorry about that.
I'd like to lead us all in thanks for Chad creating the opportunity for this, Damon providing some amazing experience and content. Thanks, and to all our friends.
Yeah. And thanks to everybody out there.
Yeah.
Thanks to you, Flynn, for starting all this. I didn't finish my thought earlier that I wanted to go into, because we are building up a history here of this, and like I said, you've got before, French Federation comes into play, you've got after, right? What's going to happen now? We were talking about this earlier, we're hoping that putting out this stuff, going into, like us, TPLA, going into this next phase of Form 5, Damon helping us by giving us this thing, us helping us get that out there. Hopefully we can, recapture not even recapture, make another spark, right? That will start another type of fire.
Yeah,
right?
I think there's a conscious evolution about it, in the sense that we can look at the evolution of things going on as we are consciously making them.
Absolutely.
And I think that is a unique opportunity, not just for this idea of working with the laser store, the lightsaber, whatever
we call
it, but also in the sense of the time with technology and complexity too. And I think it's a huge thing that even I myself don't understand. I don't understand it, but I'm showing up and doing what I can.
Yeah.
I'm just kind of letting go into the mystery of it and letting nature take its course.
Yeah, totally. We just want to put it out there. We don't aggressively advertise or put ourselves out there or anything like that. We want to be a service to people. We want to create things for people, right? Not for some lofty.
Must fight with lightsabers.
Yeah. The German school of it. You will have fun now.
I'm sure the Germans are having fun with lightsabers.
Oh,
Everyone's having fun with lightsabers.
Yeah. Michael comes here. Yeah. The Germans get too much crap, but our Germans are.
Anyways, I think that's a good closing statement, and I think that let's just keep in contact and see what the next phase is.
Yeah, that's the thing. This is now an actual evolving martial art. It's got its own life, right? And now we're all just contributing to it.
Oh, and one thing I want to say to the people in France, you guys are going to see that, but I only put 3 lines out. Play, get back to us, see what's going on. And I'm not going to go to the people. I'm just saying that because we've had some communication with them. But I mean, to everybody, play with it. See what happens. What do you create out of this palette that gets put to you? And that's important.
the moments when that stuff starts to inform when you're playing with other people.
Journal it,
Yeah.
dialogue about it, blog it, whatever it is, whatever medium you want to do, and put it out there.
Yeah, put it out there. That's
Have the courage to show up and create. And it took me a long
Yeah.
time to get that courage again. And I'm thankful that it's here now.
and train, right? Takes
What's really exciting about the French people too, that they seem really open. They don't want to just force their rule set down people's throats. They sound like they actually really want to see this martial art develop, and they're willing to make some changes and stuff like that. Because there's commentary that I'm hearing about some of the rule set, and it's like kind of like, well, why that, why this, why this. So it seems like they're open to having that conversation, move forward, and make changes. So that's really exciting too.
That was the first step into a larger world.
Yeah, I think we will get into we'll get into the official FFE lightsaber stuff fairly soon. Once we get down there, we've been working with it for a while. I'm going to be doing my first workshop teaching it in June 22nd.
You're going to France on June 22nd?
No, I will be going. I will be teaching in France in October. The dates have not yet been set, but I will be in Paris in October. So for our French viewers out there, if I'll be coming to you pretty soon.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, and he will be my interpreter for at least part of it. I think. Hopefully, if we can make that work, so you'll get to meet good old Daniel over here, who's also an accomplished swordsman. So just because he's there, don't mess with him. He really embarrassed a Venezuelan stick fighter at the last.
I didn't. He's not.
Hey guys, is anybody attending Combat Con in Las Vegas?
What?
Is anybody attending the Combat Con in Las Vegas in August?
Oh, dude.
Not really, because August is really a difficult month for me with the business, because that's like our transition from summer into fall. People go on vacation and everything like
Yeah,
that.
and I'm
So
teaching a lot of camps with the kids over the summer. So, I'm maybe.
Are you gonna go?
you're muted still.
Yeah, actually, I am. I'm going to be there. I'm actually planning on getting a table so that I can actually have a vendor presence. So I know we're going to be talking about the French fencing rules for sure, for the Saber Legion stuff that's going on.
All right, well, cool. I mean, well, share with us your experience with that, Flynn. I think that would be a good thing to do. That's awesome.
Yeah, there's one of the fencing instructors, Maestro Martinez, out of New York City. He's extremely
Martinez.
right. I got 2 years ago when I was at Combat Con. I finally got him and one of his students to actually pick up a lightsaber and try their methods.
Really?
They actually had a good time. He was almost embarrassed that he enjoyed it so much.
Oh, wonderful. That's an
wonderful.
amazing thing.
How old is
I got the video. I'll have to share.
Yeah, I would love to see that.
Yeah.
That's amazing. That's great that you got Martinez to pick up a lightsaber. Well done. That's awesome.
Hey, man.
Well, gentlemen, I did.
I'm telling you, man. Everybody so my teacher, Mayu, came in and seen that we did some Djem. We were trying to find out what's a good Djem weapon because they're different. We pull out the saber. He's like, "Hey, these are really good."
Oh, he was really happy.
And he thought it was really great because it was really easy to score because you could see the blades, right? And then we told him about Flash and Clash and said we can set that so that you can see when they actually hit. He's like, "Really? Oh my God!" So now he really wants to get
Technological marvels.
Yeah. So now we're like, I'm designing a Djem, a traditional Chinese Djem weapon on the saber that we'll try to get in there that can help people ref because they can see the action more. Lightsaber blades you can see.
Yeah.
It's really hard to see those other,
How about the NeoPixel blades? Oh my God.
Yeah, that's a little too
I haven't
bright.
even seen that.
Yeah.
Anyways, we're getting kind of like at wrap up time.
Yep.
Brother, man. I think we got to go out and get something to eat, and we got to just like chill out
And get ready for the battle.
And I again want to express my gratitude and thanks. I want to express it's really good to reconnect with you, Glenn, and I look forward to the future.
Absolutely. And again, I want to thank everybody here. Thank you, Damon, for not just what you're doing this weekend, but everything that you've done thus far.
Thanks.
Right? That's something that never gets said to people in this position, right? Because things just get put out there. A lot of people don't even know where it came from, right? You might be practicing his form and you don't know it, right? Maybe now you do, and that's a good thing, right? We want to know where these things come from, not for some, weird purpose, but it's a root, right? And we can go to him. We can say, hey, what about this? And he can give us his answer, right? Or we can start, oh, I don't know. Let's talk about it, right? Let's figure that one out together, all right? And that's what we want to do. We want to bring people into contact with each other. That's what we've always been doing here at TPLA. That's been our mission statement from the beginning, is creating community. We're bringing in tradition, sport, community, and scholarship now, so that we're creating a good body and a good resource for people to come to get information, right? We're taking it from historical sources, we're taking it from lightsaber sources, and then we're taking it from all kinds of sources and putting it together. So we will be doing more things like this in the future. We're going to be doing the symposium again in this format again next year. We're going to be starting out some fundraising things for people out there who've been asking about it and who are interested, that we've been kind of for a year and a half now been kind of talking about, because YouTube's change in ad revenue. But even if you're just watching our videos and even just sharing them and all that stuff, thank you for doing that. Thank you for being with us on this journey. We'll see where it all goes. But no matter where it ends up, I think we're probably going to all end up there together. So, just like Captain America said, Although if you've seen Endgame, no spoilers. No spoilers. No.
The circle is now complete.
Yeah. No, not even close. We'll see when that happens. That will be an amazing time. And my vision for that is more of us in a place and an audience.
Yeah.
Right, for this. And then so we can have live discussion and stuff. Anyway, that is it for us. Thank you for joining us. This 2019 Seven Forum Symposium. Closing out. Thank you to Voronak, Ben, Daniel, the General. Thank you to Flynn. Thank you to all of you out there. Have a great day. Have a great weekend. We'll see you soon. And happy sabering.